Win or get in, it's here. Everybody seems to be saying the same thing. Laremy Tunsil doesn't say much, but I got to exclusively talk to him. Plus, the Texans' biggest advantage, Colts' biggest advantage, advantages we're not talking about. So much to get into, such little time. Let's go inside the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we
win or go home. That's where we are right now with the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts. And who the hell saw this coming? Probably nobody would be the right answer. You look at where we were about a year ago to the day. It was a matchup where two of the worst teams in football were meeting. Neither fan base appeared to have any interest in winning that game, and the rest is just kind of written itself. The Texans hired D'Amico Ryans. The Colts hire Shane Steichen. Texans draft C.J. Stroud. Colts draft Anthony Richardson. Colts hand the Texans an ass whooping in week 2, and then Anthony Richardson goes down. Minshew Mania takes over in Indianapolis, and now here we are. Two teams trying to get into the postseason, and something that not too many people saw coming. It is the locker room pregame show. Don't usually do pregame shows during the year because there's not a long shelf life, but in this situation, the whole situation, I figure I'd do it 3 hours before, gives it a little bit of a shelf life, also gives you an opportunity to go back if I'm wrong, which there is a chance that I could be. You go back and just call me an idiot, and we just call it a day. That's just where we are right now. We'll hear exclusive words from Laremy Tunsil. I got some crazy facts, crazy stats that I'd like to get into. And if I'm going to do this, I want to bring on Cody Stoots, who covers this team. He's at every practice. For Texans information, forget all the other outlets. This is the top place to go. Daily content, digital content, better than the Chronicle, better than the Athletic. Athletic doesn't even pay attention to the Texans. And the best grasp of what's going on, not just saying that because he's here. So, Stoots, let's just get into this. First question I want to ask, and you can subscribe to Houston Football, follow Cody Stoots' Instagram page. I know you got a big ESPN national hit coming up in an hour, so won't hold you too long. My question here before we get into like the specifics is, why is everyone picking the Texans to win this game? Everyone on ESPN on Get Up, everyone on ESPN on Around the Horn, and everyone on the Athletic, every staff writer that the NFL athletic writers, they pick the Texans. So sometimes, you say, well, everyone was picking them, and it's like, okay, well, I don't know about that. It seemed kind of split, or there was at least one person who didn't. But literally every national person that I've seen have an opinion about this game is picking the Texans. Let's try to make sense of that.
They know more about the Texans. The Texans have had reasons for excitement and reasons to pay attention to them over the course of the season. C.J. Stroud's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, and that has caught people's attention over the course of the season. So they've paid a little bit more attention to the Texans, so they're more familiar and comfortable with picking the Texans. You say this all the time. You're not shocked when national folks don't pay attention to the AFC South.
Yeah, I wouldn't if I were a national person and I had to play the hits and stuff. Like I know a lot of times, you get gassed up and you're like, why are they saying this? Why don't they know that? Because they haven't been on the big stage enough. There were probably 10 years ago that the Chiefs fans were probably complaining about the same thing. You got to have a long, sustained level of success in order to get that. I would think, though, in the NFL, like someone would pick the Colts, like somebody. And I'm not even sitting here saying that it's like lopsided. I'm just saying, like, it's not just like, some random Around the Horn panelist like Mina Kimes. She follows the league very closely. And all the NFL folks are picking them too.
I wonder if this game was being played and Anthony Richardson was playing and he had some standout rookie moments, if maybe people knew a little bit more about the Colts, if Jonathan Taylor played all year. Taylor's a star, but he hadn't played all year. Like, he's played sparingly, he's come back, and then he's missed more time. So the pay attention factor to the Colts is pretty low from that standpoint. Like, they don't have as much star power as rookie quarterback, offensive rookie of the year, CJ Stroud. So people are just more comfortable with it. They haven't played a lot of primetime games either, the Colts. So it's not like they saw a lot of those Colts games. And it just kind of feels like Indy, yes, they took care of business last week, but they've kind of hobbled to the finish line here. It's not like this is like some team that's playing some awesome amount of football. Like, they've lost 2 games in their past 4. They lost to backup quarterbacks. They didn't look good in the losses. They got smoked by the Bengals. Like, they've kind of hobbled to the finish line, and I just feel like people maybe are catching it where the Texans are going up and the Colts are going down, and that's where people have kind of made their decision.
And right on cue, I didn't follow the NFL Network situation. So J-Rock says Daniel Jeremiah picked the Colts. There you go. That's an educated football guy.
Get out of here. We're Dane Brugler people.
SVP picked the Colts, and he's a terrible gambler. So yeah, I don't know.
Feel great about that.
I think it's an equal matchup. I just find it interesting that it's so lopsided. I find that a little bit.
That's probably that's one of your best points you made all week. Is it's so much closer between these two teams than the experts' picks would make it seem like these two teams.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what's confusing to me is I feel like, I mean, if you told me the Colts were going to come out here and win the game, I would say, yeah, I could easily see that happening. That's kind of where I'm at. And I want to look at the top 5 matchups in this. Cody Stoots here. It is the Locker Room, #1 source for Texans daily digital content. Post game still going down. Same usual time, right after kickoff. So get your ass in here. We'll react to what everyone said there. Be sure to subscribe, like, and ride along as well.
Right after final whistle, not kickoff.
Final whistle. Okay. Yeah, I'm not in playoff form either. Top 5 matchups in this game that I think we need to keep an eye on. Matchup number 1 is D'Amico Ryans versus Shane Steichen. And these are 2 coaches that could deserve to be in Coach of the Year discussions, considerations, all of that. They've faced each other in intense situations recently. D'Amico's defense has done battle with Shane Steichen's offense. And this will be the 3rd time that a D'Amico defense has met a Shane Steichen offense in less than a year. And the thing that Shane Steichen seems to, at least early on, have an advantage of is early on in games, specifically on the first drive. And I'll just show you a couple of numbers here. The week 2 opening drive, it was a 10-play, 75-yard drive, 416, 6 passes and 4 runs. And Anthony Richardson was actually throwing early. They had the design run, but they clearly saw something that they felt they could take advantage of. And I think the Colts were really the first team to just say, okay, the Texans might not guard guys in the intermediate passing game as much as they would like to. And it kind of felt like that was what Steichen saw. 2022 NFC title game. We remember the 49ers losing their quarterback. That's what that game will always be remembered for. But on the opening drive, Shane Steichen, 11 plays, 66 yards, 5-12, 7 pass, 3 run TD drive. So look, it's a very small sample size. I happen to think it's possible that Shane Steichen is just really good at preparing and building up, and during the scripted portion of offense, he can figure it out. That's not to say D'Amico isn't. I think there's just a chance that he's really elite at that. So it's something to keep an eye on, because right now Steichen is 2 for 2 with 2 touchdowns against D'Amico Ryans on opening drives. And one of those was a win or go home game, win and go to the biggest game type of situation. And now you have this one.
It's like the players are totally different than than last year. Obviously, I mean, I'm not breaking any news here to you. These guys have less impressive teams to work with than they did a year ago, because obviously the 49ers and the Eagles are still both really good. Well, the Eagles definitely look like they're missing Steichen a lot in this matchup, or in this season as well. Like this matchup, like just
and
knowing
it's long term too. That's the other thing, is like if you're a Texans fan and you think this is the start of something, like it's long term. It's Kubiak looking across at Tony Dungy, like at the beginning. It's like It's a long-term thing. And that's why you look at these trends, and it's going to be a rolling list, because it seems like they're at least a half decade or more. These guys are going to be doing battle. And if they're going to continue, if they're going to overachieve when no one expects them, as their teams get better, as the personnel gets better, this is going to be the matchup that we look at. It's going to be a prime matchup that's going to matter for a long time. And we're early in it. And it carries over from Eagles versus 49ers, which is what makes it even cooler.
I'm really excited to see what Steichen does. It's not so much about the play calls that D'Amico calls. Like, yes, it's about Steichen's play calls and how the players execute them, but it's okay. D'Amico's going to use this player this way. We got the play. We knew this was coming. This play call's ready for it. Oh, this is going to happen. Like, oh, D'Amico's running this guy out there on third down. Oh, well, we knew that was going to happen. Like, how much of that does Steichen have? Because D'Amico talked about it this week. He's like, the players are a lot different. I don't look at really much of his stuff, and especially because we have 17 games to look at him now. And it's like, how much is D'Amico ready for what he likes to do early? And then how much is Steichen ready? Because as much as Steichen sets the tone, D'Amico trying to get ready for it, it's almost Steichen's counterpunch within those early drives and the portion of the game that I'm interested to see. Because if D'Amico's ready for the first 2-3 plays, like, what does Steichen have to adjust to get ready for him? It's like a couple weeks ago, the Texans allowed the Titans to score on the first drive, and then they mauled them for the rest of the game. And then the following week, they let the Browns score on the first drive, and it was basically a tone setter for how much the Browns were going to kick their ass that day. And so, like, that first drive could set the tone for the day, or that first drive could be the lone bit of offense that the Colts have. But it feels like the Texans have been very susceptible to that first drive from teams, and certainly Steichen seems to have that thing dialed in.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is, like, as far as like studying, like weekly studying, the other element is, you fall down 14-0 to Richardson. The strip sack was a big factor as well last time around. You cut it to 14-7. You wonder, like, will they start to figure out what's going on with Richardson because they're so prepared for him? They know his tendencies. And then all of a sudden, boom, Minshew comes in, guns blazing. So, now D'Amico, his defense, they're going to have it's all about Gardner Minshew this week. I doubt they even thought about Gardner Minshew the last time these teams faced. So that's another element. D'Amico, Steichen, not just today, but long-term, if these teams keep performing and surpassing expectations the way that they have. Matchup number 2, CJ Stroud versus Gardner Minshew. And I think this is a really interesting thing, because this is the first time since November 26th of this year that the Indianapolis Colts, led by Gardner Minshew, will have faced a starting quarterback. Let me say that again. November 26th was the last time, and it was Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Bucks. That was the last time that the Indianapolis Colts faced a starting quarterback. It's been 5 games, and in that stretch, they've gone 3-2 with 2 20-point losses. They lost by 20 to Browning and the Cincinnati Bengals. They lost by 19 to Heineke in Atlanta. They beat Mitchell Trubisky, who since has been benched for Mason Rudolph. And they had a 3-point win over the Las Vegas Raiders, led by O'Connell, and Will Levis with Tennessee. So I don't say that.
Murderer's row right there.
Yeah, and I don't act like the Texans have gone through any murderer's row either. The Texans have some really bad losses. I'm just trying to make sense of the gray area with the Indianapolis Colts. And there is a gray area that I think we need to look at that does favor the Colts significantly. And we'll get into that a little bit later on. But this is, we're talking about, and the Texans got their butt whooped by the Jets. But a 19-point loss to Taylor Heineke in Atlanta, which is a plummeting football team. A 20-point loss to Browning. And in fairness, Browning kind of found his groove a little bit there, and he was playing decently. And then the close wins. I don't necessarily hold close wins against you, but this is interesting. Like, if you're talking about, what can CJ Stroud do, and CJ Stroud's been out and all that type of stuff. They haven't seen a quarterback like this in a long time.
This is, and I know you've heard him say this before. When Aaron Rodgers used to get asked about opposing quarterbacks. He would always be this flippant jerk and say, well, I don't play against him. I play against the defense. But that's not totally true, because if that other guy can put up a lot of points, it changes the way that you operate. Yeah. And I do wonder if CJ Stroud's grooving it and they're moving the ball and they're putting points up on the board, if there's an element of Gardner Minshew's game that says, I've got to take a chance. I've got to try to get it deep to Alec Pierce. I overlook this quick, 5-yarder to try to get a 15, a 20-yarder, try to get an explosive play. And if that takes them out of what they can do, because Stroud can put a lot of pressure on the offense of the Colts and what Minshew can do throwing the football. I don't believe Minshew can do the same thing, because the Texans have been pretty comfortable at different times operating with a big deficit, and they've been able to put some points on the board and overcome some stuff over the course of the season. So, Stroud can kind of push Minshew and push him out of his comfort zone in this matchup, where I don't believe Minshew's capable of the other.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the whole, the quarterbacks don't face each other. I just kind of
I roll my eyes and I'm disgusted every time somebody just can't talk good about the other quarterback.
So Laremy Tunsil, we'll hear from Laremy Tunsil over the course of this. He did an exclusive interview on In the Loop on Sports Radio 610. Since the very beginning, he was a huge proponent of CJ Stroud. I asked Laremy Tunsil, what's up with that? Why were you so comfortable, loving up on CJ Stroud despite the fact you hadn't seen him play? Here was what Laremy Tunsil had to say about that.
He knows we're thankful for him.
What made you so comfortable with CJ to where, because you were one of the first, and then it seemed like there was kind of a snowball effect. What made you so comfortable with a guy who hadn't even really worked out? Y'all hadn't been on the same field together for you to say this is QB1 immediately. What made you so comfortable to do that? I
just watched the Georgia and Ohio State game. That should tell you everything right there.
I think it was still during training camp when we talked to you and you said that to us about him.
In my eyes,
yeah.
In my eyes, he always been QB1. When we drafted him, I was like QB1.
All right, so CJ Stroud obviously always been loved up on by Pro Bowler Laremy Tunsil. We'll hear more from him throughout this thing. Also, check out the link.
His fourth official media appearance of the year.
Yep, and we've had 2 of them. So yeah, how about that? But yeah, the CJ Stroud element is interesting. Him versus Gardner Minshew. I agree. It does, the quarterback matchup matters, because a quarterback, Aaron Rodgers should know this, a quarterback can elevate his entire team. So don't be actually guy in that situation. Matchup number 3. It is the Locker Room pregame show. Appreciate you for coming through. Subscribe right along. I would recommend a subscription to Houston Football. Also, if you don't want to do that, be sure to get on Cody Stoots' YouTube channel as well. Matchup number 3 is Michael Pittman versus ? That's not a misprint. That's not anything. We've heard D'Amico Ryans say we don't have receivers follow guys around. I would feel a lot more comfortable if Derek Stingley were just following Michael Pittman around. I feel okay with Steven Nelson doing battle with him, but I would feel a lot more comfortable in that situation. Don't believe that's going to happen. And I also believe Michael Pittman is a good receiver, capable of getting behind a defense and capable of making plays. This one right here is going to be interesting. And the other element of it is, and Kevin Bowen talked about this with me on the radio show, is Gardner Minshew going to be able to take advantage of the opportunity? I think the long ball has been something that has been inconsistent with him.
And Pittman's a freak. I like him. He's really good. He's one of the better young receivers. I mean, you and I were both.
How about that second round? They got Pittman, then the Texans took Ross Blacklock, and then the Colts took Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah,
I think they also got Julian Blackmon in that one. They had a really good second round that year, and the Texans got 2 mediocre years out of Ross Blacklock.
Was it 2 years? It didn't feel like he finished that actual second year. I don't know.
Oh, well, yeah, whatever.
Pittman's really good, and D'Amico Ryans and the proprietors of that defense don't have their corners travel with number 1 wide receivers. Some defenses do. This defense does not. Robert Saleh doesn't do it in New York with Sauce Gardner. They didn't do it in San Francisco when they had guys. Like, they don't travel with the top guy. They trust the other corner and the coverage and things like that. If this was first half of the season, Steven Nelson, I'd have no problems with it. But Steven Nelson,
he's banged up.
He's banged up. He's banged up, and the coverage helping him has been inconsistent. Whether it be Petri or Ward,
we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
DeAndre Houston Carson or whoever. The coverage helping Steven Nelson at time has been inconsistent. And so I do worry from that standpoint. What I really worry about is that these corners don't end up with Pittman because he runs a bunch of slants or drags and quick stuff, and it's just Minshew dumping the ball to him as fast as he can, and then it's up to Perryman or Harris or somebody like that or Cashman to go make the tackle. And it's like, yeah, I trust them to go out there and make the play, but like, are they just going to try to keep Pittman away from Stingley, away from Nelson, and just get him out there in space and get the ball to him as fast as they can, then let him go with a bunch of this, with a bunch of yards after catch.
And by the way, Tyler brought up a good point. Was it mediocre? I might have been a little too nice to Ross Blacklock there, calling it mediocre. They probably could have used mediocre, probably could have stayed on the team if it had been mediocre. Matchup number 4, Petri versus the deep ball. Look, man, you got benched 2 weeks ago. It's been something. If Shane Steichen's watching this tape, and he is, he sees what everyone else sees. He sees what DeMeco Ryans saw when he benched Jaylen Petri. Keep an eye on Kareem Jackson. If he's used or not, I don't know what they're going to do there. But Jaylen Petri versus the deep ball, specifically Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce averages 16 yards per catch. They also have downs. We know Pittman can go deep. Keep an eye on Jaylen Petri versus the deep ball because it's been there. It's been exposed. And this is an opportunity, Jaylen Petri. This is a big opportunity for Jaylen Petri to right the wrongs, man. Get your confidence up going into the playoffs. I just didn't think that I would be discussing Jaylen Petri as up to this point inconsistent and it oftentimes liability. Jaylen Petri versus the deep ball is scary. That's really scary, especially when you know that these coaches are seeing what we're seeing.
You talked about Pierce. He will just appear behind DBs, and Minshew just tosses that sucker up, and Pierce, a big athletic guy, goes up and gets it. And then another thing I'm worried about,
by the way, faster than he looks, by the way.
Oh yeah, of course, real lunch pail guy. Another thing I'm worried about with Petri, in addition to the deep ball, which has been something that's been really bad the past few weeks with him, and really all season with him, is we talked about yards after catch a second ago. Pittman's 13th in the league in yards after catch. He gets going. Petri takes bad angles sometimes, like and it's either extra yards or sometimes it's a touchdown. Like we've seen that a couple of times where Jaylen Petri is late on the coverage, and in addition to being late, he doesn't take a great angle, and then the guy's just going and running free. And so I'm really worried about Petri.
Yeah, and you should be. And he has a chance. Like this is an opportunity for Jaylen Petri. If we just take a look at Jaylen Petri's 2023 season, I don't think it's even close. Like it's you've had Damen Pierce, and Damen Pierce has actually made this into a positive. Like Damen Pierce has said, this is going to be my best year as a pro because I'm learning so much. I'm learning that, I wasn't as far along as I thought and all that. And they've kind of found a role for him. I wouldn't be surprised to see Damen Pierce having a decent impact. They're going to need Jaylen Petri to show up, but it's been the most disappointing 2023 season by Houston Texan based on expectations. And it's not even close.
Yeah. It's been at best mediocre and oftentimes bad from Jaylen Petri. And he's got to be better because they're going to keep putting him on the football field and they don't have another option. Like it's like there's not a ton of options to replace Jaylen Petri. If they had more options, maybe there would have been a longer term sit on the pine, but they don't have as many options. And so go out there, show some of the ball hawking, show some of the athleticism, show some of the instincts that when he played at Baylor, it felt like there were two Jaylen Petris on the field. It felt that way sometimes with the Texans last year. We haven't seen that hardly at all in 2023.
He's got a chance, man. You can
He's
forget about it. You can forget about it. You can flip the switch and forget about it, and it will all be forgotten, and his confidence will be up as well. So that's the beauty of this is there's a chance. It's not, you're talking past tense, but you can wipe it all away with a good performance today and just making sure that when they get behind you, you're in the right place.
Yeah, for sure.
Matchup 5, the Colts D line versus the Texans O line. You hear the talk about the advantages that the Colts have in the trenches. There's talk about their offensive line and their D lines. Me personally, I think the Texans D line, even without Jonathan Grenard, is kind of underrated. Like I think like with all the bodies, especially with the bodies that we believe that they're going to have, I actually think it's pretty underrated and they can hold their own. And as good as this Colts offensive line can be, it can be pretty good at full strength. It's not what we got used to a few years ago when it was arguably the best offensive line in football. These guys have gotten a little bit older. Quentin Nelson's still a mofo. But I actually think on that side of things, I think you're okay. Now, the D-line will be interesting because they blitz the least in the league and they're top 5 in sacks. So it's just going to be, we're going to try to kick your ass, and that's the bottom line, and we're going to leave our guys in coverage. And we've seen at times the Texans' offensive line get a little bit banged up when it comes to just basic pass rushing. This is something to really keep a close eye on.
For all the praise the Colts have gotten for their defensive line, and they should, the Texans are 4 behind them in sacks, 4 sacks behind them. And you think about some of the in and out that the Texans defensive line has played through over the course of this season. Anderson missed a couple games. Sheldon Rankins is missing games. Malik Collins not been 100%. Grenard's missing games now. So it's don't get me wrong, it's a really good defensive line, and they've got depth and good players on it. So like Kwity Paye and DeForest Buckner are really good. And then they've got depth guys that don't even really start that are in there for like pass rush situations and things like that. I am worried most perhaps about Michael Dieter and Juice Scruggs and Shaq Mason against Buckner, because Quinnen Williams, who's really good, he tore this team up when the Texans played the Jets. And I just worry about Buckner doing a lot of the same to not only the rushing attack, but also getting there and getting after CJ Stroud. I'm not as worried about the edges. The edge guys are good, but a lot of that is because Buckner forces that quarterback back to the edge guys. If you could slow down Buckner, because you don't stop him, if you could just slow down Buckner, the tough part, you can't send a lot of help to him. Like, he's kind of the key to that whole defensive line. He gets going, it's going to be a long day for the offensive line. If you can just slow him down a little bit, give CJ Stroud enough time to make some decisions, you'll be okay.
Laremy Tunsil, more from Laremy Tunsil, the exclusive interview. He wants to be an All-Pro. I asked him to lay out the case for being an All-Pro. Again, I'm not like an offensive line expert, but here was his case.
What is the case for the All-Pro? What is the LT case for being the All-Pro tackle?
Staying consistent, man. I've been consistent this whole season. It's about that time that I get the honors, in my opinion.
All right. I look, I'm not a lot of, it seems like there's a lot of like left tackle experts in town. I don't know whether I don't think Laremy Tunsil is all pro caliber based on the other guys. I think he's good, Pro Bowl, all that. But he definitely wants to be all pro. If the Texans keep improving and that he keeps getting more and more attention, I think the all pro will eventually come.
So so when we do Pro Football Writer of America awards and we do the who should be the all pros on the O line, I feel lost when I'm doing that sometimes. I mean, I know Trent Williams is good, so I typically Trent Williams is one of them. And then the other one, Penei Sewell hasn't a lot of sack this year. Like the Lions right tackle, like that's something that works against Tunsil is you just put tackles. It doesn't matter left tackle, right tackle, you just put tackles. And so Penei Sewell's going to be an All-Pro this year. Trent Williams is going to be an All-Pro this year. Like, okay, there's 2. It's the All-Pro team. Like it's tough. I mean, he missed a little bit of time as well. Like that works against him. So it's tough. He'll get there. He'll get an All-Pro one day. I just don't know with the injury middle
This
season.
year, I don't think so. This year, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, this year I don't think so. What about the game itself? Here's Laremy Tunsil in the exclusive interview about that.
It's an important game because it's the next game.
Come
all the
on.
fellas know that, we prepared like it's an important game. We just got to get it done, get that spot. So everybody knows what it is, what the stakes is, and I think we're gonna get it done.
It's important because it's the next. Come on, man.
It's
He's right though, but yeah.
It's funny because I have no idea if Tunsil's got any of this in his contract, but I was listening to the Long brothers talk about how offensive linemen don't get too hyped for the final game of the season because they typically don't have any sort of incentives in their contracts.
The incentive is win.
The incentive, but a lot of guys
get in. What do you mean he doesn't have an incentive?
Let me listen. Let me finish. But a lot of times offensive linemen have playoff incentives and championship incentives in their contract, and so making the playoffs a big deal. You want to be an all-pro? Go out there and block in the playoffs and make everybody watch you. Look, here's my thing. I do believe the knee has affected his level of play this season.
Yeah.
And I do believe that absolutely. If he plays this well with the knee injury, if the knee gets fixed and he comes back next year, he's going to be an all-pro next year. Playing at that level, healthy.
On your shot, huh? Yeah, I mean, you team success sometimes, like you get in, like they'll look at your offensive line a little bit. What do you know about this Indianapolis shrimp cocktail?
It is the most overrated food item I have heard about from any media member in sports.
Okay, ever.
I went to the scouting combine a few years ago, and that was I dropped my stuff off at the Airbnb. I went downtown, picked up my credential. And I'm asking everybody, all the Uber drivers, the people at the convention center, where do I got to go? You got to go to St. Elmo's. You got to go to St. Elmo's. You got to get the shrimp cocktail. So I walk in there. I belly up to the bar. Guy's like, you from out of town? I'm like, yep. He's like, you want the shrimp cocktail? I'm like, yep. Fire away. So he brings it over, and he's like, just warning you. Just warning you. And I'm like, cool, man. I'm ready. First couple bites. I mean, it's not. People act like it's like the spiciest thing they've ever had. Don't get me wrong; it's a tasty treat. It tastes good. The spice level is not knock you off your bar stool. The guy was like, pretty spicy, huh?" And I was like, "It's okay." He was like, "What?"
Well, let's hear what Tunsil has to say about it, because Lopez agrees with you. My co-host John Lopez in the Loop Sports Radio 610 10 to 2 Central. By the way, be sure to like the video, subscribe. Always apprecited. But here is Laremy Tunsil.
Freaking cocktail shrimp in Indianapolis is the go-to, dude.
It's undefeated, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
It's cocktail shrimp, though, man.
It's undefeated, man. It's undefeated. They got this sauce.
I know. It's called cocktail sauce.
It's spicy, very spicy,
dude,
bro.
I guarantee I could make you some cocktail sauce just as good.
He wants to try to
Guarantee. Like when I go to, so you're gonna go to St. Elmo's then?
No, I might just chill at the hotel,
man. All right. I can't believe you're all in on boiled shrimp with cocktail sauce, dude. That's easy.
When I tried it, when I played Indy my third year when I was with Miami, one of my teammates actually took me to the restaurant, and we tried the shrimp, and it was unbelievable. So,
all right,
I thought it was pretty good.
Dude, I'm gonna have to call Lopez. I already made the mark on the show prep for confessions. And this just kind of went over my head. My co-host John Lopez, he's starting to kind of be creepy with his like offering to cook for everyone and like offering to take fishing like guys he barely knows. He's almost becoming like the ice cream man driving around the neighborhood without ice cream in the truck. I got to have a talk with him. We're gonna have this talk 12:20 on Monday, in the middle of Reaction Monday, because it's getting a little bit creepy for me.
Hey. You want some cocktail sauce,
hey,
Laremy Tunsil?
I can cook you some cocktail sauce, man. Hey, you haven't. Oh, you like barbecue? Oh, you haven't had any till you've had my barbecue.
I will say, as far as that cocktail sauce goes, it is tasty. And the gimmick that they do to kind of spice it up is they fresh shave the horseradish into the cocktail sauce when they mix it up. So it's not out of a jar. Like when I make cocktail sauce for like dipping shrimp at home, I get the jarred horseradish and put it in my cocktail sauce and spice it up that way. They do fresh shave it into the sauce. So it, again, tastes good. It's not nearly as hot as everybody thinks it is.
So I wanted to ask Laremy Tunsil, and we'll have some fun and loosen up a little bit at the end with Laremy Tunsil, but I wanted to ask him about his run blocking criticism. John Lopez did, because this is always one of the bigger knocks. Here was Laremy Tunsil talking about the criticism he gets from a run blocking perspective.
Are you a better a run blocker than people tend to credit you for?
I think so, bro. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Why?
I think so.
What is it?
I think so. The way I get off the ball, the way I move guys in the run game, the way I work with Juice in the double teams, I think that makes me a good run blocker. I don't know why I don't get credit for it. I guess people pay attention to PFF and just rank me from PFF and just don't watch film and really try to understand what's going on out there.
All right, so that's him on the run block criticism. I don't look. I watch. I do think sometimes it leaves a little bit to be desired, but I do think that it's hard to grade offensive linemen when it comes to PFF. But that's the Texans as a whole. They really just don't run block consistently as much as they should. Hell, Bobby Slowick said the other day that the Singletary 24-yard run they didn't block well, and he kind of made it. A point to bring that up. So yeah, that's
he said Singletary basically, like they threw the first couple early blocks and then Singletary basically got it done himself.
Yep. So I wanted to talk about the SOSW, aka the state of Strouds Weapons. Where are we looking for CJ Stroud Weapons? You're kind of making a face like you're not too confident in these weapons. I think Xavier Hutchinson is someone to keep an eye on. I could see him making a big play or so. Noah Brown's had 3 really good games and then 7 very mediocre games, and he's missed 7 games. So, yeah, he's come up in some big situations, but a large chunk of his production has been when in those 3 games that we talk about and not necessarily consistency. Are we looking at Dalton Schultz? Because Tunsil playing kind of frees up Dalton Schultz. Are we looking elsewhere? Is it just Nico Collins? Are we just looking at Singletary? Where are we looking at the SOSW?
I mean, Nico Collins is the dude. That's the guy that you've got to rely on. He's got to go out there and have success. And I know that there's a lot of advanced stat nerds that were throwing out the stat. Hey, the Colts run this style of defense, and 2 of the best against that defense, CJ Stroud, Nico Collins. There's no other choice for Nico Collins. He has to be good in this game. Nobody's going to be there to really help him.
1B. There's no more, hey, is it Tank? Is it Nico? It's gone. It's you.
Yeah, he's got to be good. And CJ looks for him. I mean, especially when –
and they find him quick too. They give him chances. They give him chances. He's not just dependent on, they set up stuff for him to get him going. I wouldn't be surprised. I think we see a Nico Collins screen pass on the first drive.
The Texans are the second best team in football at yards after catch, and Nico's one of the main reasons of that. He's I think 15th in the league in yards after catch. So got to get him going, got to get him running, bowling guys over like he does. And then I have no idea what to expect from Robert Woods. He did not practice all week. Like, he is hurt. So like the 5 yards,
bro.
Turn
an old man injury than a hip.
Yeah, turn
an ankle.
Yeah, the whole Robert Woods run 5 yards, turn around and catch the ball. Like, I don't know how well he can do that. I will say I have liked, you didn't see it a lot in this most recent game, but you saw it a little bit against Cleveland, and you definitely saw it against Tennessee. And it's a staple of this offense that they haven't done a bunch, that Slowick and company all saw happen in San Francisco. They've thrown the ball to Devin Singletary a little bit in the past few games. And, again, against the Titans, you didn't necessarily need it that much. It didn't look great against the Browns. But that big play in overtime or near overtime, or was it in overtime? It was in overtime against the Titans, was a pass to Devin Singletary. So you got to get that going as well. Brevin Jordan out of the backfield. He lined up at fullback last week. He scored his touchdown or moving around the formation. So, like, it's Schultz and Nico, and then whoever else can step up in that moment.
Yeah. What about this? We talked about disappointing seasons, and look, it's been one of the most disappointing. He does seem to have perspective. What about Damen Pierce? The season speaks for itself. I think Damen Pierce is going to be a little bit of a factor in this game. I actually, last time they played, he got 15 carries. I don't expect him to out carry Singletary by double digits, but I feel like Damen Pierce, in some way, shape, or form, I think there's going to be a little bit of a Damen Pierce sighting, whether it's on short yardage, whether it's a little change up. I would keep an eye on Damen Pierce. He stayed ready. I think Damen Pierce is someone to keep an eye on.
I just here's what I know.
Not a big impact, but a really big play that we look back to.
When he gets trusted with the football, he has to produce with it. Like if they're going to use a snap on Damen Pierce, he has to produce when the football gets in his hands.
Well, they're going to have to use a snap, dude. Like you can't ask Singletary to be out there 100% of the time.
But what I'm saying is if it's a 3rd and 1 and they put the ball in Damen Pierce's belly, he better get the yard. Like if they're going to throw him the ball, he better catch it. Like if they're going to use Damen Pierce, he has to produce when the ball gets to him, or it's going to be a wasted snap here. Like I don't have as much faith in him. I don't have the same gut feeling that you do. But this would be one hell of a moment to show up and start to build some momentum if you're Damen Pierce.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just think you need another running back. There's every team in the league has multiple. It seems like I don't want to make like a blanket statement, but name me one who doesn't. They seem to have multiple running backs that can make plays, and the Texans, for the freaking, I don't even know how many years, they only have one. Like from O'Brien, and O'Brien might have taken it too serious. He was just an idiot. So I'm going to dismiss that. But they haven't. Caserio's not taking the running back position serious. Like he has. There's been no elite asset. Like it's been very minimized, which is surprising based on what they did in New England. Like get the bodies in, bring them in. D'Amico and Slowick want to use the word committee. To have a committee, you got to have multiple guys who can make plays. Texans don't have it, and they're going to need it. They might not be capable of it, but in the offseason, I would love to see that happening. But this isn't about the offseason. This is about the win-or-go-home game, which is going to begin in about 2.5 hours. Texans' biggest advantage. I think this is clear. I'm not going to overthink this. I'm not going to try to go in the sticks. Quarterback. That is the Texans' biggest advantage. What is their second biggest advantage outside of the quarterback position?
Their cornerbacks. Like if you're like comparing the position to the other team, their cornerbacks are way better than the Colts cornerbacks. So it's got to be like the Colts have to have that entire the defensive backfield all work together to have really good coverage and to play good coverage. The Texans can get good coverage where Derek Stingley just makes everything else right, or Steven Nelson makes a big play. That's, to me, their second biggest advantage. And the Texans, a close game like this, they're better in special teams than the Colts are. Their kicker's better and their punter's better. So, I don't know if it's not the second biggest spot, but they're better in special teams, which in what we both expect to be a close game could ultimately end up mattering.
Shout out to T. Appreciate you. He says biggest advantage is QB. I would agree. Colts' biggest advantage. Everyone's talking about the trenches. Is it that simple? Is it the trenches? Because I do not think their offensive line is physically imposing over especially depending on who goes. I do not think the Texans D line gets abused, gets beat up. Or anything like that. I actually think that's a little bit overstated. But I will say, if we're just looking for advantages, I would say, sure, we can go trenches if you'd like. I will get into the underrated aspects after this, but is the trenches the biggest advantage?
No, to me, if you're going position versus position, the biggest advantage is their linebackers are better than the Texans linebackers. Zaire Franklin probably should have been a Pro Bowler. EJ Speed's really good, and it's just I trust their linebackers and what they're asked to do more, and they're more consistent than what the Texans have done at linebacker over the course of the season. I will say though, Christian Harris basically since
I think he's going to be a mofo today. The nastiness that he showed against Tennessee, I think that translates.
Since the second quarter of the Tampa Bay game, I texted a buddy of mine in the first quarter of the Tampa Bay game. I was like, Christian Harris is playing like dog doo-doo. And from that second quarter of the Tampa Bay game through the rest of the season, it's like a switch flipped for him, and he's been mauling people. He set the tone against Derrick Henry in Tennessee.
And he was doing it between whistles too.
Yeah, when he smashed Henry, and he got up and he was talking all that mess to him, like he just power bombed him. Like it was great to see Christian Harris kind of come into his own, and they trust him in coverage. You saw it last week on the goal line. They trust him to go out there, cover somebody in a coverage situation. So Harris turning into a really nice player has been really good.
Most underrated Texans element, most underrated thing that we don't talk a lot about when it comes to the Texans and a potential advantage that they could have. I've said it a couple of times. I think the defensive line, I think even without Jonathan Grenard, I don't think the defensive line gets credit. The plug and play guys, the guys that they've brought in, like the upside that Will Anderson has, regardless of, whether or not we've had to focus on advanced stats at times. Even the guys off the streets, like it's just been, I think the Texans D line and the fact that they're able to shuffle in bodies and stuff, and Matt Burke seems to be doing a good job with that, and D'Amico. I think the most underrated element is the Texans D line. I think it's being talked about as if Quentin Nelson and Kelly are. It's 3 years ago. I don't think it's the same.
Yeah, I kind of would go more general and just say the depth, because if Laremy Tunsil has to miss some time in a game, George Fant filled in really nicely for him last week. If Charlie Heck goes down, you got George Fant. You talked about the rotation of guys at defensive line, and you know what? They're going to have to use those guys because you don't have Grenard to take a bunch of those snaps. But even from the defensive tackle standpoint, Heinisch played one of his best games of the season last week. He'd been kind of falling down the defensive tackle depth chart, but he played well last week. Khalil Davis has made a play or two. Barnett, who's been around the block here in the NFL a few times, he's made some nice plays on the defensive line. It's like the depth, DeAndre Houston Carson, they trust him at the safety spot. Some of the depth pieces are now starters, but the depth is where we don't talk about how well the depth is put together, because we've watched Texans teams in the past where if the starter went down, everybody behind them was a bumbling idiot, and there was no chance that they was going to have any level of success with the backup in.
Most underrated Colts element for me is the wide receivers. I think Alec Pierce, Downs. I think they have. They don't have great receivers, but I think with the Texans' weakness being potentially the deep ball, specifically Jaylen Petri against the deep ball, I do think their wide receivers could be a little bit slept on, just based on the dialogue that we've had all week and really all season when we talk about the Texans versus the Colts.
Yeah, that feels like it. Minshew is simultaneously overrated because he's fun, and underrated because he doesn't make a ton of mistakes with the football. I mean, he's willing to just kind of throw it at somebody's feet and live to fight another day. Like, he's pretty smart when there's some backup quarterbacks that try to play hero ball. He doesn't, and he doesn't take sacks. So I think he's a little underrated. But the pass catchers for the Colts are pretty damn good. They've been able to get a tight end going randomly throughout the course of the year. So that's something that kind of worries me, is a tight end randomly going to get going against the Texans today? But their pass catchers being underrated is a really good one.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting thing. Roster move right now. We don't have the full inactives, but the Texans have activated Johnny Johnson. Do you want to be a hardo and give me a Johnny Johnson scouting report?
I probably realized Johnny Johnson was on the team Friday when they were doing a special teams drill, and I don't remember if he was covering the punt or returning the punt. I understand why Steven Sims is not on the active roster, because they probably feel like Noah Brown can come back soon. So you don't want to IR Noah Brown, and you feel good about the other people on the roster. But I would have tried to make a roster move to put Steven Sims on the active roster.
I think if Noah can't go next week, then they're going to have to. But I think they're trying to prolong it as much as they can, because they like Steven Sims more than just a normal practice squad guy. Like they seem to like him, and he's taken advantage of some of his opportunities. They overdid the reverse crap in Tennessee a little bit, but Bobby Slowick loves reverses. We know that. But yeah, I think if Noah can't go next week, you gotta figure something out there.
I do not expect Johnny Johnson to be a factor in the way that the Texans are approaching this game. I mean, if he's playing, it's because
that would be crazy.
If he's playing, it's because somebody got hurt or somebody needed a rest. They tapped out for a second.
Tapped the head, huh? Okay.
Anything like I want it to happen so bad? Anything from Mechie today?
Yeah, I don't know. They want it to happen really bad. I just don't. I don't even know. I don't know that John Mechie is better than Steven Sims at this point. And I like Mechie. We talked to Mechie. It's it would be nice, and I think it would be a nice way to thank them for giving you every opportunity to succeed. And also, you talked about Nico Collins. It's not an option. It's not like a maybe he comes out and plays. John Mechie's not the number 5 guy anymore, where, you have a random catch in the third quarter and all of a sudden, you're talking to him like he is up for comeback player of the year. Like you're up the depth chart now. Noah Brown's not playing.
Robert Woods is hurt.
Robert Woods is banged up, and Tank Dell is out for the season. And we're sitting here talking about, hey, can Johnny Johnson, and maybe they should figure out Steven Sims. That speaks volumes about what we've gotten from John Mechie, who told me himself, I want to be treated like a football player, the feel good story. So yeah, I don't expect much from Mechie. I think he's got the ability to do it. We've seen some drops. We'll see. I won't hold my breath.
Yeah. Okay.
Some fun with Laremy Tunsil. You saw the video where Hannah did the sweeping thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Tunsil was asked about Cal and Hannah. Lopez brought them up. And here's what he had to say about that.
Cal and Hannah McNair. They were kind of like in the background, not really out there.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're like the most popular people out there.
It's crazy. They pass them. I am right now. They just asked about you.
See what I mean? Not like
it's crazy. No, they're more involved for sure. You appreciate that. Some of them guys.
Yeah, Hannah talks some smack.
She does.
Yeah, she was. She said, "Bring the broom out, huh?" That was crazy.
Yeah, bring the broom. The sweep.
See, they all see it, man. They all see that social media stuff.
Man, everybody is cooler. Like winning fixes everything. Winning also makes you cooler. Everybody's cooler when you feel good about the team and the direction and winning and stuff like that. Like it's a shame Cal hasn't done more stuff during the season, because like he did all this stuff the past couple of years. Like everybody's cooler, from the owner to the security person that lets you in the door at NRG Stadium. Everybody's cooler when you're winning.
Everybody is way cooler. I got a feeling you'll be on Twitter during the game, right?
Yes.
You think Titus Howard will be on Twitter during the game?
I hope so.
Talk to Laremy Tunsil about social media, and I brought up Titus Howard, and here's what Laremy Tunsil had to say about that.
Do you look at PFF? You have to, right?
I mean, if it comes to my Twitter, I see it.
And what do you? You've seen like you're pretty good. I feel like you're better than Titus at avoiding certain things on Twitter.
I avoid it, man. Unless it's funny. If it's funny, I respond.
Yeah, you're better at avoiding it. How is that? Do you just scroll through real quick and avoid, or what? Because Titus is out there. I'm just like, what? Why is he giving this any time of day? What is this? You're not even playing right now.
Yeah, but you just got to leave it alone. You read it, just leave it alone. Just try to prove everybody wrong.
When was the worst? When was the worst social media time for you? Was it the draft? Was there like
draft,
a moment?
For sure.
Did you just have to like take a step back? Because I imagine at that time, you really hadn't gotten any like bad, for lack of a better term, like bad smoke, publicity, anything like that. Like that had to have been the moment where you just said, "Man, I got to take a step back from this."
Yeah, no, that's when I built some tough skin. I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you what, man, he would have been number one on my draft board with the way he took that from the gas mask, though. Anyone who's done that, it is that I mean, he made that look like a champion. He made it look like Mike Tyson punched him in the face and he basically blew a kiss. The equivalent of that. He'd have been number one on my board. I would have traded up for him. But that was Laremy Tunsil. I know you got your ESPN. By the way, if y'all want to go check out the ESPN National, just click on that radio link. You're going to hear Cody Stoots there shortly, and I'm going to get ready for this game as well. I'm so damn excited.
What are you doing? Shrimp cocktail for it?
I don't know. We'll see. I'm definitely got some running in today, trying to better myself. What will Joe and Troy say, though? ESPN/ABC. What will Joe and Troy say? Will it be a CJ Stroud love fest? Will it be a D'Amico Ryans love fest? Who else will they fall in love with? Because I'm of all the things that we're excited for, I'm excited. First of all, I'm excited to hear Joe Buck's voice. I know a lot of Astros fans don't like. I love Joe Buck. I think he's a great broadcaster. And I think Troy Aikman's always prepared. What do you think the national media types are going to say about the Texans?
I got a hunch Aikman's going to love CJ. Like he's going to be in full bloom love with what CJ does. And there's going to be a good amount of respect for the Colts from both those guys. And Buck's really, I mean, he seemed really excited to be calling this game too, as he was tweeting about it this week. So it's when you get great broadcasters on your game, and those are I think they're the best primetime booth right now. They're better than Nance Romo. They're better than Tirico Collinsworth. They're better than the corpse of Al Michaels and Collinsworth.
It was a good move by ESPN.
Yeah.
You know, take that serious. They were kind of half-ass in the Monday Night Football broadcast, and they're doing their thing.
Yeah.
And Pedro, you're not serious. Bring back Joe Tess hamburger. You stop it. You want Witten too?
He called him Decaf Metcalf one time. Joe Tessitore. Tess can make.
I like Tess. The thing is, I like Tess. I don't think he was in a good position to succeed. I like Tess a lot.
He can make a Saturday afternoon Big Ten game feel huge. And
all right,
that's a good job by him.
Let's eat, man. It's going to be nice. It's going to be fun. Post game tonight, Texans, Colts. Subscribe to Houston Football. Best subscription you can possibly have. Really, the only option at this point, as far as like getting consistent Texans content from someone there every day that is there to cover the team 100%, that can live, breathe, good grasp of the history of the team, good grasp of the outlook of the team. Houston Football is the best place to go. Stoots' YouTube channel as well. Going to be a fun one at Twitter, on Twitter at Landry Locker, on Twitter at Cody _Stoots. And let's eat, man. Let's eat. Good luck on national ESPN stuff. It's an exciting time. And I'll let you go now.
Good stuff, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's go. Let's eat. It's that time. Win or go home. Not many people thought this was going to happen. It happened. Reaction Monday is going to be crazy on In the Loop Sports Radio 610. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. Watch us on YouTube every single day. Monday through Friday, 10 to 2, the pulse of what's going on, the show of record, and the number one place for Texans daily digital content here. If you don't mind, be sure to like the video when you leave. Be sure to subscribe, and be sure to always know when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Get your game face on. It's about to go down post game immediately after the final whistle.
Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not 2. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give.